Even though the NFL playoffs are still going on and the season isn't officially over yet, the offseason has really been full swing for the Panthers because there's been a whirlwind of things that have happened. From the GM getting fired, coaches getting jobs at other places, Joe Brady being rumored to go who knows where, Dwayne Haskins being brought in for a workout, and now Scott Fitterer, a new general manager, is in the building. He has been hired. So there's been a lot going on in Panthers Nation. And today, Scott Fitterer had his introductory conference. You know, him and David Tepper did a Zoom call with some of the reporters, and they basically just introduced Scott. They got some questions in about his philosophy, what he thought about the team and the roster building forward, and just a thought process of what he wants to implement here with the Carolina Panthers. And Matt Rhule did his own press conference after that, just kind of reacting and breaking that down also. But today in this video, I'm going to give you some clips and some sound bites that I thought were the biggest takeaways from this press conference. I got 3 big takeaways and 1 big bonus one. So make sure you stick around to the end to get that bonus one, which I think is a real surprise one. I think you might like that one on the line, down the line. So make sure you guys stick around for the whole video. But before we get into all these clips, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button below, because my name is Aaron Duncan here with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. I start off every video by saying, "What up, dude?" Because on this channel, I do Panthers content and analysis, film breakdowns, live streams, all that good stuff. So if you want to see more videos and stay up to date and don't miss any of them, you got to hit the subscribe button and you have to hit the bell icon. That way you get a notification. Otherwise, you may or may not get one. And before we get into the rest of it, give the video a thumbs up, man, because it don't cost a thing to do that, and it really helps my video get the word out in the algorithm. So without further ado, let's go and get into it. The first clip is responding to a question he was asked about how aggressive they're going to be as far as acquiring players via trade, and if the opportunity for Deshaun Watson came up, would they be interested in doing it? So let's go ahead and listen.
And talking to folks back in Seattle or connected with theirs, they all said that your mantra in Seattle was to be involved in every deal out there. And without mentioning a certain player's name, if you felt there was a quarterback in Houston that was on the trade blocks, would you be interested?
Well, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. What I will tell you is we will be in on every deal. We're going to find out where things are going, what the landscape is in the NFL. But before we do anything outside, I need to figure out who's here. I need to figure out this roster. I need to figure out who's on our offensive line, who's on our defensive line. I know them from a 30,000-foot view, but I need to know them from a coach's standpoint. I need to know them from a personnel standpoint and meet these guys and see what they're made up of. So there's a lot of things we're going to be involved with going forward. We're going to be very aggressive in our acquisition process, but it starts with getting to know our team, and just being here for just a few days, I'm just starting that process.
As you can see, he reassured them that he's going to live up to that mantra that they had at Seattle about wanting to be involved in pretty much every deal. You hear that. Anytime there's any kind of rumor of some guy getting moved around or some free agent possibly going in, the Seahawks name always comes up whether they make the deal or not. Even though they have made some deals like Jadeveon Clowney, and remember when they just acquired Jamal Adams this season, giving up 2 first-round picks and the starting safety, which is a very aggressive move. But if you feel like you can feel a need that you need a lot, they're going to go ahead and make it. So that mantra also feels good. But he also gave the coaches speak, obviously, talking about he needs to evaluate who's on the roster and whatnot. But notice that he really emphasized only the offensive and defensive line. He didn't talk about anything else. So that's a good mantra to have, because you definitely got to protect the quarterback and you definitely got to get after the quarterback. And he seems to put an emphasis on that offensive defensive line. I love to hear that. The second biggest takeaway is just, for me, listening to him, you get a real feel of how they want to build a team, what their philosophy is on building a team, because they're all about getting value. It's a little bit different. Seattle, when he was there, they were pretty successful for a sustained period of time, so they didn't really have top 10, top 5 picks like the Panthers have had these past couple years, so it's going to be a little different for him. However, his philosophy for the draft really tweaked my brain, so I want you to hear it.
The draft philosophy in Seattle, we've historically picked, mid-20s, late 20s, over the last 10 years. And when you look at the draft, when you build the board, there's a certain level of player that stops about 16, 17, or 18. So once we're picking at 25, we know we're not going to get those, what we consider players that are going to come in and be impact players. We don't see a big difference between 25 and 40 at that point. So we can move back, acquire picks, and still get the same caliber of player that fits our team. This year it's going to be a little bit different. We're picking at 8 this year, and so we're in that mix of players. So that gives us the opportunity. We can move up, we can move back. It gives us a lot of flexibility in the draft, and it'll be a new adventure and one that I'm looking forward to. But that's really, if you're not in that top part of the draft, we're going to try to acquire picks.
And if you heard, it seems pretty interesting because he said, like I said, after 16, 17, 18, all those guys are pretty much the same when you get to about 40. So if they're stuck in that range, they're going to move back or move up to be able to get more picks to go get the person they like, or to get multiple picks, because it seems like the philosophy is they're going to want to bring in as many guys as possible, kick every can they can to see what they have, because they're going to be confident in how they evaluate players and develop people. But they just need to get as many bodies in here as possible, because the draft is not a science. So if you play it like a numbers game, the more people you bring in, the more type of picks you can bring in, the better chance you have of developing them and evaluating them and making them become different stars. That's how they ended up with guys like Richard Sherman being drafted late in the rounds and Tyler Lockett being a second or third round, or getting DK Metcalf in the second round. Smart moves like that and multiplying your assets are really smart. And I like that philosophy. It sounds pretty good because the Panthers really haven't drafted that late in the draft like that. The last couple times they did that was Vernon Butler and Shaq Thompson. But think about it. Had they traded back and gotten more picks, it definitely would have been better value than Vernon Butler, who's out on the team. And yes, Shaq has developed, but if we could have got another second or third round pick to bring in some extra players, because we picked Shaq at like 28 or something like that. So had we been able to get some more early second round picks instead of that, we probably could have got more value, and you get to see a little bit more talent come in. So I like that philosophy because that's something a little different than we've had here in Carolina. And the third takeaway before we get to the bonus one that I thought was interesting was the fact that, for all intents and purposes, the tone of this sounds like we're probably going to draft a quarterback. Listen to how much of a premium and importance that he's going to have. I got a couple clips I'm going to show you, but listen to his tone and how he delivers and talks about what the top priorities are when building a team. Listen to what the position that comes out first.
Where do you stack up your philosophies and things that you may have learned from Seattle, from your time in Seattle, and how you'll apply that in terms of building the roster overall?
Sure. Definitely, it starts with the quarterback, but I believe in building a team on both sides of the line, the offensive line, defensive line. You have to be able to protect the quarterback, and you have to be able to get after the quarterback. So in this situation, those are all things that we're going to look at. But at my core, quarterback, offensive line, defensive line is where it's going to start.
This just tells you how important he feels the quarterback position is, and we all know. I'm glad they admitted it and accepted it. But he also talked about the offensive defensive line, which I pointed to earlier, and being able to do that. Now, I have my comments because Seattle has had some great defensive lines, but the stigma about the Seahawks for years was that they couldn't protect Russell Wilson. He was one of the most hit quarterbacks in the league. So if this philosophy for him is so important, why weren't they able to address that in Seattle? I have some questions. I know they did acquire Dwayne Brown, and he ended up being good, but he was a little bit older. But it seems like it took them a while to really develop an offensive line that could give Russell Wilson quality protection. Yeah, him being a dual threat quarterback really helped save and protect and make the offensive line seem a little bit better than they were, because he could avoid sacks. But for him to have such a high importance on offensive line, why didn't they really put a great one in front of Russell Wilson? That's a good question. But I want to get to the next clip where they ask him what he thinks about the drafting the quarterback position and bringing guys in, because this is a very interesting philosophy that I think was unique in Seattle about the quarterback position and bringing in players.
You could just discuss what you feel like you have right now with the quarterback situation and what the future there might be.
Again, I'm just starting to learn the players on this team. I do believe in competition at all positions, and we're going to look to raise the level at all positions. We're never satisfied with our roster. So we're going to always look, and I know you're talking about quarterback position. That's something I believe in drafting every year or acquiring at some point, just philosophically. And so overall, I'm really just need to get here first, figure out our players on our roster, and that's how we're going to go about it.
Now, this is a very interesting take on the quarterback position, because they had Russell Wilson as their guy. But if you look at their backup quarterback position, they always brought in new guys, whether it was Charlie Whitehurst, Seneca Wallace, Matt Flynn, Geno Smith even spent some time there. BJ Daniels. They always brought in some quarterbacks to see what they could get out of those guys. Not just because they wanted to see if he can beat out Russell Wilson, but it's such a toss-up in the position and trying to figure out how good a quarterback is. You can get guys late in the draft like Tom Brady, who are Hall of Famers. You can get mid-round guys like Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson. But you can also draft guys high like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson that are good. So it's really a crapshoot when it comes to finding the quarterback. So being able to bring one in, whether it's acquisition for trades, free agency, or draft every year to see what you can find is always the key, because you never know. He could be trade bait, or he can end up being one snap away from being your starter. So being able to constantly bring in quarterbacks every offseason is something that we should pay attention to. And the last clip about this subject of quarterback, this is really the telltale to me, because they asked him what was his definition of a franchise quarterback. And if you listen to the traits that he described, it sounds a little bit different than what we have here in Carolina.
What is your definition of a franchise quarterback? What does that look like to you?
Someone that can lift the players around them, someone that gives you an opportunity to win when the game's on the line in the fourth quarter, someone that just has the leadership qualities that when they walk in the building, they know that's the person in charge. And those are the most important things. Then you get into the position specifics, the processing, the decision making, the intelligence, the arm strength, the accuracy. But really when it comes down to it, it's the leadership and being able to compete and win when the game's on the line.
Hey, man. Hey. Don't just take my word for it. Listen to him. People think we've been speculating and we may just bring back Teddy for some magical reason, but it's clear and obvious that the organization is going to be looking to get the quarterback position because all those traits he described about the quarterback being able to lead the team down the field when it matters in the fourth quarter. Wasn't Teddy Bridgewater like 0 for 7 or 0 for 8 on game-winning or game-time potential drives? So that's the complete opposite of Teddy. When he talked about being able to elevate the ability of guys around him, Teddy had a lot of talent, 3,000-yard receivers, but only was able to score 15 touchdown passes. Now, that doesn't seem like elevating to me. That feels like you were holding some guys back. But a lot of the guys we had were turning wine from water because Teddy Bridgewater had some limitations when it came to the deep ball. We have all this speed, so he wasn't elevating the guy. He was almost holding them back. And granted, the leadership skills Teddy does have, and people respect him for that. But it seems like all those traits that he described is the complete opposite of Teddy Bridgewater. So I expect us to get a quarterback. Most likely it'll probably be draft because I think they're going to want to have as many picks as possible because it seems like they put a premium on draft picks over everything. Even though they had, like I said, they made some aggressive trades in Seattle, but we will see. But I definitely feel like there will be either a change of the guard at quarterback if we bring in a big-time guy like Deshaun Watson, or there will be some competition if we go get a young guy in the draft early. And that leads me to the last bonus takeaway because this is an interesting question. This wasn't for Scott Fitterer. This is for David Tepper. Now, a lot of us have been a little critical of David Tepper, including myself. We were getting Jerry Jones vibes about him being too involved in the process. We heard about them interviewing 15 or so guys. We heard about him doing this, that, and the third, being angry about the team's production. So the question was asked to him, David Tepper, now that you have your guys as far as getting a head coach, general manager, and all the staff on the business side and in the front office, will you kind of fall back? They can ask him a question, will you kind of fall back and kind of let these guys do work? Look at his answer.
I think, coming in here, and I said this before to you guys, some people criticized me for making changes initially. Some people criticized me when I thought I got rid of Rivera too early, or moved on from Rivera too early. I really wanted to figure out what was the best thing to do because I was although I was around the Steelers for a lot of years, I wasn't as knowledgeable as I could be. So at this point, I really do think that while people always hold me responsible before, and I never, hid from that, I think there's just a higher level of, these are the guys that I chose now. So there's no place to hide. I never hide anyways, but for sure there's no place now. So I'm, highly confident in these two guys, and I'm, really excited to have them and then to move forward, move forward with them. Look, I get really, at this point, now that I have more experience, I get really, what's really important to me that the process that we go through is right. Okay, that we do the right analysis and research and background checking, and we're thorough in that. It's not just gut feels, and we do double checking. So I think that I'm more interested in that we have the right processes, if you want to call it that, the right analytical processes. When I say analytical, I don't mean analytics. I mean just research, doing the right background research and having the right tools to do that, and the right processes when we're making some of these decisions than the decisions themselves. Listen, I'll never be close to the evaluator that Scott is, or Matt Rhule is, for that matter, and I won't try to be that.
It was very interesting to me that he admitted that he had made some mistakes. Now, what were the mistakes that we were talking about? Was it firing Ron Rivera too early? Was it keeping him around too long? Was it keeping Marty Herney around too long? Was it getting rid of Cam in order to bring in a guy like Teddy Bridgewater for 3 years? Because he said he made some mistakes and he's heard the criticism. And that tells me, my takeaway from that is David Tepper has his ears to the street. Maybe he has a burner Twitter account, but he sees the fans' complaints. He sees us. He hears our cries and our pleas talking about what kind of moves they've been making, and he's seen the criticism. And now that he has all his own guys in there, he knows he'll be under the microscope. Granted, he can't be fired because he's the owner, But at the same time, he knows that the fans aren't happy and are skeptical and are critical of what he's been doing and what's been going on. And it seems like he's going to take a step back. He's going to be involved in the stuff. He talked about being a three-way marriage, but I think he's going to be involved in making sure everything runs smoothly. But I think he just wants to make sure that the relationship is fine, that they're sticking to the processes that they want to do, and they're running the team in the way that he wants to run it versus being in the weeds, evaluating players, evaluating talent, talking to the media all the time like Jerry Jones. But he'll be at a high level, making sure that all the engines are running smoothly in that assembly line. But you guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about this press conference and what was your biggest takeaway from these clips. And do you feel the same way I feel about what they're doing, evaluating talent and bringing in quarterbacks, and the biggest takeaways about how this philosophy of this team will be built? Let me know down below in the comments how you feel about it, man. But without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, man, because I'm bringing this fire content all the time. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss anything. But I'm signing off. I'll see you next time. Peace.